There's massive controversy at the moment of KTM being in significant financial trouble. Some media outlets, as well as a couple of YouTube videos, are claiming that it's $2.5 billion in losses. So in today's video, we're going to have a look at how much financial trouble KTM are actually in, how serious this is, and we also need to discuss the cheese cams as that factors in as well. So let's dive into all this KTM controversy and see what really is going on. This isn't a video for the person that wants to dance on KTM's grave. I'm not a fanboy and I'm not a hater. I'm somewhere in the middle. I like to think that I think as objectively as possible. I'm just trying to look at the facts and the financial statements of the Pierer Mobility Group to try and understand whether the claims that are being made are as serious as people would have you think. Let's start with that $2.5 billion loss, of which I've received many comments saying, hey, Solid, KTM are in real trouble. They've lost X amount of money, they're probably going to go broke very soon. So we need to clear that statement up straight out of the gate. What they're talking about with that $2.5 billion is actually not a loss of physical money. This is market capitalization, how much the company is worth on the stock exchange in its entirety. And at its peak of the highs of COVID, KTM was worth an awful lot of money. Now it's down 65% from those highs. And of course, the market capitalization, wouldn't you know it, has dropped by over $2 billion. This is something that happens to an awful lot of companies in our boom-bust Western capitalist system. We go through significant market corrections all the time, and companies experience significant corrections as well, as you can't have a continuous line of growth up and to the right. It just never happens. Markets go up and down all the time. It's volatility. It's a fact of investing and a fact of the markets and money itself. And KTM has experienced a significant decline in the value of its company. And of course, that is a significant deal. It's definitely a serious thing, but it isn't the same as KTM physically losing $2.5 billion of revenue. That would be the end of times for KTM. This is just concerning and something that KTM need to take notice of, as this is a big signal that the company isn't being run appropriately or as efficiently as it could be. So to summarize, that $2.5 billion loss is technically correct, but it's a loss in market capitalization, not in revenue nor in debt. So it's a very different thing. So KTM themselves haven't lost that amount of money, but they are still in a bit of financial trouble as they've had a negative half of 2024, which is a significant change from the last few years where they've been doing very, very well. So let's have a closer look with what's actually going on here. Let's just go straight to the Pierer Mobility Group website, and they've written up a summary of how the first half of 2024 has gone, and it's not good. Let's scroll down to the motorcycle section because that's the KTM relevant part. Let's forget about the bicycles and the other subsidiaries that are going on. You can see here they list the first half of 2023 was just shy of $1.3 billion, whereas external revenue for the first half of 2024 was $936 million. So that's a fairly significant correction. That is a difference of roughly $350 million. That's down 27% over 2023's same period. And you might be looking down underneath that and thinking, what the hell is EBIT? That just stands for earnings before interest and taxes. The motorcycle segment was in the green for $117 million. That is in euros, by the way. Whereas for the same half this year, 2024, they're in the red for $78 million. That means their earnings was actually a loss of $78 million, which is definitely a red flag and a big warning sign for KTM. They've quoted the macroeconomic environment. If that just sounds like a whole lot of gibberish to you, that just means the big picture, the economy on a global scale. They've also quoted the interest rates. This is the major one that a lot of companies are really struggling to come to terms with. No longer are we in the post-global financial crisis era of easy liquidity where you could get interest rates at almost zero. We're now back to some amount of normalcy with significantly higher interest rates, which means you've got to pay an awful lot more back on the loans that you have. And of course, that's mean a slowdown in growth and in the economy. We've all noticed that things are getting tougher for the regular person, and the whole script has flipped, of course, because now it's harder to get access to credit. If you can, the interest rates are significantly higher, which means people are more reluctant to go and get loans or credit to spend on things they don't need. And of course, KTM fits into that bracket of it's a want, it's not a need. So they're obviously experiencing a significant decline in demand of their vehicles as well. And this has resulted in KTM experiencing a global net decline in sales of just over 20%, which is a big deal. That's a significant decline in demand. Now, the big question then is, what is KTM actually going to do? Because this needs action. This is enough of a loss for them to have to really think we need a significant course correction. And that's exactly what KTM are going to be doing here. So there are big changes coming. Quote Pierer Mobility Group, there's going to be significant reductions in cost. Of course, that means the little guy is going to cop it first. That means 200 employees are going to get the axe. They're reducing production volumes as well, and not by a little figure. They're reducing production volumes moving forward by 25%. And a reduction in production in Austria, so in Europe, where they produce their premium motorcycles. It looks like they will be focusing even more on China and India as places for production, as it does make business sense because it is cheaper to produce bikes in both of those countries, with them working closely with CF Moto in China for a long time now, as well as Bajaj in India. Both of those have been to fairly decent success. And of course, they're going to have to adjust their sales expectation for the rest of 2024. I've seen quite a lot of discussion, a few articles too, stating that maybe KTM will have to sell GasGas and let go of Husqvarna as well. There was no discussion, obviously, of MV Agusta, who they recently acquired, either in those articles, so I don't know why they weren't put in there as well, their recent acquisition. But I don't think things are that dire yet. I think people have gone too much to the doom and gloom. Of course, they've mistaken that $2.5 billion loss in market capitalization as actual loss in revenue or in net debt, which is just not the case. So I don't think those brands are going anywhere anytime soon. Of course, if things keep spiraling out of control and KTM do not make the course corrections that they need to do appropriately, then things could get much, much worse. But at this present date, I think it's a little bit too doom and gloom to start worrying about whether we'll see GasGas and Husqvarna and MV Agusta on the showroom floor. So we're definitely nowhere near hitting the panic button. I think this is just a reality check for KTM. Now on to the camware, or as it's been coined now, the cheese cams, the LC8 series of engines. So that is the 790, the 890, and now the 990 that's coming out. The parallel twins in those size engines, the LC8C, has early cam wear issues. Now, people have noted that they have different levels of cam wear. So some people have just experienced early cam wear and it's been sorted by the dealership. Others have had catastrophic failures as a result. Some people have had experiences of KTM actually honoring the warranty and the dealerships really helping out and standing behind them. Others have just been thrown in the door and left with their butts hanging out in the wind by KTM and are really not happy. Now, I reported on this earlier because KTM finally broke their silence on the cam wear allegations, which is clearly a problem by how many people have been experiencing this issue, because there's even a dedicated Facebook group to it, which I talked about, and KTM replied to that Facebook group. And I had people come back to me saying, Solid, you've blown this out of proportion. KTM, if you actually read the post that you showed in your video, you would see that KTM are actually taking accountability and are saying, take it in and we'll have a look at it and we will honor it if it is a cam wear issue. What I need to point out to the people that have taken that stance that KTM are looking after everyone is that that was a post to a private group. This wasn't an official public relations announcement by KTM on any of their socials. This was released within a private group, and KTM KTM have not released this out on their socials by their PR team at all and taken this head on. Not only was it released in a private group, but if you've got any legal background, of which I do, I've got a double master's in criminal justice. This has been written by a legal team. There are so many loopholes in this statement that you could fit the Titanic through. So there really isn't any factual legal accountability in this statement if you read it properly. There's a lot of if you feel this way, a lot of maybes. We'll take this on notice. We will consider this for evaluation. These are all statements that leave KTM an awful lot of wiggle room not to honor it if they don't feel like it. In fact, when they were asked publicly by a reporter at motorcyclenews.com, KTM didn't take it head on. They actually sidestepped the question. They stated that the cam wear on the LC8C have no inherent defects. Of course, KTM could be just taking this on notice, gathering data, and really trying to get their heads around it, and will come out later with a statement about these cam wear issues. Or perhaps there haven't been enough issues logged in all the dealerships yet for it to trigger a huge recall. And remember that this is the internet and things tend to get way overblown. But at least to my estimation, it does seem at least like a significant enough of an issue for KTM to at least take this head on and make an official announcement about it. So it really is hard to make sense of what is exactly going on here. It seems to be more of a case by case basis type thing. It really will depend on how good of a relationship you have with the dealership, how trustworthy and dependable the people at the dealership you have, and how much effort they will put in to go to bat for you, as well as how obvious the cam wear problem is, or whether it's some other cause that has created the cam wear issue. That it's not as clear cut as everyone's pointing out that either KTM are evil or KTM are great. It's always a very gray world, and I think it's a case by case basis. Yes, I think there's a cam wear issue, maybe not as big as the internet would have you think, but I think it's big enough that KTM do need to take this head on, which they've been avoiding so far, which is where my criticism lies. Going back to the financial issues, it's not as bad as it sounds, but it is still serious, so it's something we need to pay attention to. Thanks for sticking with me for this little bit of a different episode, probably very boring for a lot of you, but a lot of you asked that I talk about this issue in depth, so there you are. Some bald idiot that loves motorcycles has given you his opinion on the internet. I've done the best I could. I'm sure there's a lot of holes in my arguments and my points that you'll no doubt point out, but those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours, particularly if you've had the cam wear issue. That's what matters. Forget all the noise. It's the experience of the people that have suffered the cam wear issue. So if that's you, please put your comments down below. That information is like gold to everyone here. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe, as that really helps out the channel, helps the growth, and helps pay the bills as well. So your continued support is always appreciated. And as always, don't forget to stay shiny side up.